New York City, 1860. To the outside world, this was a metropolis of explosive, unstoppable wealth. If you walked down Broadway, you heard the clip-clop of expensive thoroughbreds and saw the wives of tycoons like the Astors and Vanderbilts draped in French silk. It was the Gilded Age in its infancy, a time when America was announcing itself as the new global superpower. The buildings were marble, the future was bright, and the money flowed like water. But if you turned a corner and walked just 15 minutes south, the marble turned to rotting wood. The pavement disappeared into a black, sticky swamp. And the air didn't smell of perfume. It smelled of stagnant water, coal dust, and death. Welcome to the 5 Points, the most dangerous square mile on the face of the earth. Before we descend into the mud, I want to know where you are watching from. So comment your city and country below. It's amazing to see how far these stories reach. Now, watch your step. Why was this specific spot so hellish? Because, geologically speaking, it wasn't supposed to be there. This area used to be a beautiful freshwater lake called the Collect Pond. But as the city expanded, they made a fatal mistake. They drained the lake and filled it in with trash, dead animals, and loose dirt to create new land. They built a neighborhood on top of an unstable landfill. By 1860, the land was quite literally rotting beneath the floorboards. At the heart of the slum stood a building that became a legend of horror, the old Brewery. Originally a factory for Coulthard's beer, it was converted into a human hive. Over 1,000 men, women, and children lived inside this single rotting structure. It was so dangerous that for almost 20 years, the police refused to enter it at night. Inside, it was a labyrinth. There were rooms in the center of the building called the Den of Thieves that had no windows, no light, and no ventilation. Imagine living your entire life in pitch blackness. Children born here sometimes didn't see the sun until they were years old. In one room, famously called the cave, 20 families lived together on a floor covered in straw. Murder in these hallways wasn't a tragedy. It was just a part of the daily routine. Stepping outside offered no relief. In 1860, there was no sanitation department. The solution to garbage was simple: pigs. Thousands of feral hogs roamed the streets of New York, eating the trash and the human waste thrown from windows. They were the city's cleaners. You would see children riding these pigs like horses through the knee-deep sludge. If you wore a nice pair of boots here, they were ruined in seconds by the mixture of manure and mud. Alongside the pigs were the rag pickers. These were the poorest souls who made a living using metal hooks to dig through the mud for old bones, glass, or cloth. And where did those bones go? To the bone boilers. Factories in the 5 Points would boil rotting animal carcasses to make glue. The smell was described as a physical blow to the FISA thick yellow fog of rendered fat that coated the lungs of every child who lived there. But 5 Points wasn't just misery. It was the birthplace of American rhythm. Beneath the rotting buildings were dance halls like Almac's here. Irish immigrants and African Americans lived and socialized together, something illegal in most of America at the time. In these smoky cellars, they mixed Irish jigs with African shuffles to create something entirely new: tap dancing. If you wanted darker entertainment, you went to Kit Burns's Sportsman Hall. In the center of the bar was a wooden pit. Handlers would dump a sack of 100 live rats into the ring and bet on how fast a terrier dog could kill them. The floor was slick with blood. the air thick with tobacco smoke and cheap gin. It was a brutal pastime for a brutal world. In a world without law, the only protection was the tribe. This was the era of the gangs, the dead rabbits, the plug uglies, the roach guards. These weren't just criminals. They were armies. The battles were medieval. In July 1857, a massive street war broke out that lasted for 2 days. They fought with brickbats, loose paving stones, and iron bars. The police were powerless. They stood on the sidelines and watched as the gangs tore the city apart. This wasn't just crime. It was civil war for control of the streets. But the danger wasn't just in the streets. It was in your cup. Most of New York's milk came from swill dairies. Cows were kept in underground basements, fed hot whiskey mash, and never saw the sun. They were rotting alive. The milk was gray and diseased, so dairymen mixed it with chalk and plaster to turn it white. This poison killed an estimated 8,000 infants in Manhattan in a single year. The most tragic victims were the street Arabs, thousands of homeless orphans. By day, they sold newspapers. By night, they huddled together over steam grates to keep from freezing to death. It was a society where a 7-year-old boy had to be a businessman just to survive the night. To fight this chaos, the NYPD used a new technology, photography. They created the Rogues Gallery, dragging criminals into the station to pin their photos to the wall, the first attempt to bring order to the underworld. The tension finally exploded in July 1863. The Civil War draft caused the largest insurrection in American history. For 4 days, the city burned. It got so bad that the Union Army had to march straight from the Battle of Gettysburg into the streets of New York, firing cannons into the crowds. Eventually, the city decided the 5 Points was a cancer that had to be removed. In the late 19th century, a crusade led by reformer Jacob Riis finally shamed the city into action. They tore it all down, the old brewery, the sinking houses, the grog shops, demolished. Today, Columbus Park in Chinatown sits directly over the ghosts of the 5 Points. The mud is gone, but the stories of the millions who fought to survive here remain in the DNA of the city. Thanks for watching. If you want to see more lost worlds brought back to life, hit that subscribe button.